Hello and welcome to my channel, The Jellyfish Journals. My name is Susie and I am about to dive into my April reading journal for 2025. And before I start planning, I thought I would like to share my theme and the materials that I'm planning to use. So, like I've said in my other videos, I quickly got addicted to print out ephemera kits or junk journal kits on Etsy. And so for the month of April, I thought I would go with a forest theme. And all of these pages I'm about to show you, I purchased from Leanna Scrap. This is the Forest Fussy Cuts Junk Journal Kit. And there's 16 pages included in the kit. Right now, I think it's about $2 until like sometime in April, but normal price is still less than $3. So not a bad deal at all. So I'll quickly flip through these. Some of this I know for sure I'm not going to be using, but I will be, you'll see, I'll be cutting bits and pieces out of this to use for my month. So we've got some pieces have like animals on them, lots of browns. There's lots of mushrooms and greenery. The little jars are really cute. And I like these, they're almost kind of like wax seals. There's a bunch of those. Here's some writing here. It's not really a book. I'm not quite sure what that is. The luggage, I really love. I want to see if I can find a way to incorporate that. I don't think I'll be using the blackbirds, but I might save those for later when I read Edgar Allan Poe this year. Not sure yet because that won't be like a monthly theme, but we'll see. You can see I did start cutting some stuff out as I was pre-planning, and then I realized, oh no, I have to film this. So some things are going to be missing. This had some little jars on there that I'm going to be using for my tabs, so you'll definitely see those. Different wax seals in different sizes. I love the foxes. I think I'm going to bring in some foxes. Lots of butterflies. I love the pine cones. I'll be using some of those. Fun fact, a few years ago for Halloween, my daughter wanted to be a pine cone. So that will always be something that I can put in whenever I can. The deer are really cute too. Not quite sure if I'm going to use those yet. I definitely will not be using the bee. More mushrooms, and the ferns are really cool too. I'm a little nervous about the fussy cutting for that, but I think that's going to work out really well. Some brighter colors on this page. Not too sure I'm going to be going with any florals like this. If anything lighter colored will probably be those colors here. We've got some mushrooms and some lanterns. I don't think I'm going to be using the lanterns. It's probably not that beetle. Not sure about ladybugs either. But the mushrooms are kind of cool. I don't think I would have used this bear anyway. He's got kind of a line going through him, but this tree is a little easier to tell. I won't be using anything with the blue in it. There's another book there. No bees, like I said. I guess that's a muskrat, I think, maybe. Not sure. We got some bunnies and some leaves, some more pine cones. Those are fun. More butterflies and plants. I like the acorn. I love these jars. These are kind of similar to what I was saying I'm going to be using for my tabs. These are a little larger, so the tabs I'm going to be using are a bit smaller. Nothing too florally like this is going to be a part of this, but I love that it's on there. I won't be using any of the owls. That will be coming later this year. So no owls, probably no mushrooms with the roots attached like this. Maybe this kind, but not so much this here. I'm not sure yet. I don't think I'll be using any of the wolves, but I love this branch here, and I love these grayish trees. If there's enough of that and the colors will balance well, I'll be using that. We've got some more deer. I like this dragonfly. These trees are really pretty here. And this is the last sheet. And again, I did cut a little thing out of there. These guys are kind of cool. I'm not sure about this guy. Unless I'm a mean person and I cut off his tail in the back, but I do like this one here. Another jar. I love these larger wax seals. Probably won't use the globe, but in any case, lots of options here, and so that's going to be a lot of fun to use. Then I have this sticker book here that I got at Hobby Lobby, and it's, I don't know what it's called, block print, I'm guessing. The colors in here are pretty good, but what I was thinking I might pull out of here if it has a good place for it. Most of these are for like a planner. Maybe some of these, I'm not quite sure yet if I want to do outlining things. I like these butterflies and moths. Those look kind of cool. There's some mushrooms in here. I'm looking for, there was like some washi strips, these here. So that's a possibility, but not positive it's going to work out. So I might be using that. Of course, I've got my little library series. This came with a whole bunch of these. I just pulled out one to show, but they have little definitions on them. And I did make a spreadsheet that it makes it easier so I don't have to flip through every book. I can just scan the spreadsheet, but whatever words kind of connect to this theme are the ones I'll pull out. I'm pretty sure one of them says mushroom, and we'll see if any of them say like forest or trees or an animal name or something like that. I went to Hobby Lobby this morning with my stepdaughter, and I picked up this washi tape set. It was 40% off of $2.99. But I love the ferns and I love the little mushrooms. I had another mushroom set I was planning to use, but when I looked at it again, it was like more creams and coral colors. And I think this kind of goes with that dark, moody theme. And then the last thing is I picked up some papers at Hobby Lobby this morning. So we have this paper here. It's a 12 by 12, so it won't fit on screen, but it's really this part of the paper I'm after. I think that'll make a good backdrop behind all of my tabs for this month. So we've got this like tree here. I almost said birch bark. It's not quite birch bark. Then I thought this was kind of, you know, whimsical. Sounds kind of cheesy, I guess, but just little accents with the trees. It's got browns and light and dark greens on it with all the pine trees. There was this here, which looked more like moss than grass to me, but it'll bring in some of that green. And then I saw this also. This is vellum, but I liked these leafy frames. I don't know if I'm going to use them or not, but I like the option of that as just something different on the page. So we have that as well. And then, of course, oh, and then to go along with that, I picked up this book this morning. This is also Hobby Lobby, and it was 40% off. But I grabbed it because it has these similar frames here. So that might work as an option. And lastly, oh, not lastly, I also grabbed these here. I bought some ink pads from Michael's a little while back on clearance and was really frustrated that they all seem to be dried out. So, and I mean really dried out. So I might play around with toning down the white of the paper with this brown. I might see if this green is too green. I don't want a Kelly green. So probably just use the brown to tone it down. But again, I have to play with that and test it and see if it even works. So brown there. And then, of course, I didn't pull them out ahead of time. So I'm going to grab a couple right here. But of course, some Tombow markers in some browns. I have a nice dark green color here. And then if I need to, there are also Sharpie S notes and other things in green colors. So that's going to be pretty much my supplies. Everything will be linked in the description box below with the exception of loose paper. And if I pull anything else in during the filming, I will be sure to link that down in the description box below too. So let's get started. All right, so a couple of quick things before I get too far into the video. Most of this recording I did a few days ago, and the voiceover part, I currently have a little bit of a head cold, so excuse me if I sound a little stuffy or out of breath. I tend to run out of breath very easily whenever I'm sick. And also connected to me not feeling well, I did film this over a few different days. So you might notice it's a little choppier than some of my other videos have been. So apologies if any of that is frustrating in any way as a viewer. All right, so over on the left side of my April monthly page, I have put in chapter 4, just like I've done for every other month. With whatever month it is what chapter it is. And I have written out the name of the month in the same font that I've done every month. And if you've seen any of my other videos, then you'll know there are certain elements that I keep month to month, just so that the reading journal has a little consistency, even though every theme is very different from the theme before it. So whenever you turn the page, you'll still feel like you're in the same journal, even though each month takes you on a different theme or a different adventure, if you will. So for April, of course, I am doing this forest theme, and I really just had a lot of fun. I really wanted it to feel busy and a little thick and chaotic, kind of like I believe you would feel if you were deep in the forest, with things everywhere and lots of stuff happening. There's also this element of nature collecting. So you're going to see as we go through these pages, there are lots of things that kind of lean to this idea that whoever put this journal together is a naturalist of some sort. They love collecting leaves, and they love collecting little doodads, and so they've got little bottles with elements, nature elements inside. And I kind of went that route, I think partly because all of these little ephemera pieces, some of them are just too cute not to use. You'll see the little bottles and the luggage and all of that. But also, I didn't want the monthly theme to be about the animals, and I felt like it could go that way very easily. I am going to pull some animals in here. I love animals, and I think seeing forest animals seals the deal that it is a forest theme. But there was just something about it being more about somebody who enjoys being in nature and around nature versus actually being in a forest. And hopefully that makes sense by the time we get to the last spread in the April pages. So you'll see lots of times these little elements are just kind of glued down everywhere. And I like to imagine that it's just little things that somebody has collected. Yes, in real life, I am a big believer in leave it all behind. I don't bring anything home when I travel. I don't collect little jars of sand from beaches. Or I grew up in South Florida. I'm sure when I was a little girl, I liked seashells, but I don't do any of that now. I never encouraged my daughters to keep seashells from the beach. But, you know, I like to imagine that my reading journal is just as fictional of stories as the books I enjoy reading. And so whoever designed this April journal, we're going to pretend it's not me, is somebody who would collect things in nature. Maybe they're a biologist. There we go. We'll have some fun with that. So my first little definition is forest, and I thought that was obviously quite perfect, so stuck that right in the middle of that frame. And these are the 5 books I am hoping to get through in the month of April. Now, you'll see the mystery guest at the very bottom of that stack, the blue book. Well, Nita Prose's new book, The Maid's Secret, is coming out, and it's going to be released April 8th. I've already pre-ordered it on Amazon, and I pre-ordered it there first of all because I wasn't going to, but I just had a student bring me a gift card yesterday. She just, I don't know, really wanted to, I guess. I wasn't expecting it. So it kind of worked out that I had a little bit of Amazon money, and I really was hoping to get a pre-order of this book. So all that to say, the mystery guest at the bottom of that stack is kind of just a placeholder so that I could see the font. Nita Prose has done a great job making sure all of her covers look cohesive, and so I know that it's going to have the same font as the others. I'm speeding this up quite a lot and just writing the titles of those 5 books that I hope to read. I'm using a Pigma Micron. as opposed to a Papermate flare. That way, when I do read these books and I color over them with a marker, it won't smear and run, which is the problem I ran into with the Papermate flare when I forgot to use the right pen for this job. So, yeah, and all these books are on my current TBR shelf. Bitter Orange is my reading challenge book for the month, and I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next page beside this one. But I am really excited about a lot of these books. One by One is Ruth Ware. I know Frida McFadden also has a book called One by One. I have read that one. So I double checked and made sure I knew which one I had already read. And I will be reading the book by Ruth Ware. The Perfect Stranger, I believe, is by Megan Miranda. The Parrot's Perch is a memoir. I believe I should have read the back before I did this, but I think it takes place in South America. Bitter Orange, like I said, is my reading challenge book. I think I picked it up at a library sale. And then, of course, The Maid's Secret. So got my book stack going there, and I may have bought this ephemera kit just because of these little pieces of luggage. They are so stinking cute, and honestly, I would have shoved more of them in here if I could have fit more. It's already a packed spread, tight squeeze, but I think in the end it'll look very cute to have my books all colored in, and then to have my all that luggage right on top. And I always love it when I can see my head. It looks like I'm bald, which I don't know why, but it just cracks me up. I just realized too, it's kind of funny, but the suitcases to me kind of look like normal luggage right now, but I feel like once those books are covered in, the scale is going to be way off. So maybe they're like little nature caboodles, I guess. I don't know. Who cares, right? They're cute. So on to my reading challenge page, and the prompt for April was to read a book with a plant on the cover. And I'd had this book, Bitter Orange, on my shelf for quite some time. So, and it's got a beautiful cover. It's got leaves all over it and oranges on the cover, bright oranges. And after I started doing this page, it clicked that it would have probably been more fitting to somehow read that book back in February when I did my orange themed pages. But I am not going to sweat that because I think it's still going to look cool on this page with all the plants on it. Did not plan to do the forest theme because of the plants. I actually have already planned out all of my themes for the entire year in my everyday journal. And the reason for that is I wanted to make sure, and this is just where my head goes, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have two blue themes next to each other or two ocean themes next to each other, back-to-back months. And so I pre-planned out all my themes. I've already bought all my ephemera kits. And that way I know that as I flip through the journal, I always feel like I'm flipping to something brand new and not something that, not something that I feel like, oh, I thought I just did a yellow theme last month and now it's a new month, but I'm still looking at a whole lot of yellow. So hopefully that makes sense. I know myself, and I know it's a lot more interesting for myself if every time I turn the page, it's new and fresh. It's also just, it keeps me interested. It keeps me interested in the hobby, and it keeps me interested in coming back to my journal. So I tried a little of the washi tape. In the end, I decided I didn't like it. And now we are on to my new book spread. And I have not published my March reading journal update, but I acquired a shameful amount of books in March. Spring break was in March, and I ended up with a couple of friends who wanted to go book thrifting. And then Sunrise on the Reaping came out, and of course that was going to happen, and I ended up by myself at Barnes & Noble that night, and I ended up picking up some books because I didn't really have anybody to talk to and discourage me from buying books. Anyway, all that to say, I decided to leave myself a lot of space. Now, I am definitely hoping to not fill up all of these lines. But I guess the point is they're going to be there in case I am naughty again. I already know I'm going to have the Made Secret. I don't know if I'm going to do one line per book or if I'm going to just have to cram them all in. I'm just not frustrated at myself. I mean, I like that shirt that says "Life is short, buy the books." But, I mean, obviously, I love getting new books and it's super exciting. And I'm always telling my husband, it's like all these new adventures and just exciting things that I can't wait to do or read about. But at the same time, I don't like acquiring a ton of stuff. I like to love what I have and not need more than that. And so it's just become this kind of inner turmoil, I guess. But it doesn't slow me down much. Well, maybe it slows me down a little, but not tons. Okay, sorry, that was a little rambly there for a minute. On to my top reads. And I didn't get a chance to talk about this too much in the beginning, but if you watched the beginning of this video, then you saw the supplies I planned to use. And originally, these distressed inks that I bought, these little tiny distressed inks, were all dried out. And I double checked all of them. And funny enough, the two brown ones were fine. They were not so dried out. Like, I have to mash my finger on them to get any color out of it. So I don't know how much ink is in there for stamping, which I'm not into stamping. But there was luckily enough when I tried it out that I rubbed the little brush on it and it gave me just a light enough color. I do need to practice with my ink. It gets splotchy in places, and it didn't bother me for this. I felt like it made it look more organic, but I feel like there may be times when I don't want it to look that dark in certain spots. Like you can see where the ink is really a little bit thicker. So just practicing, maybe a lighter hand would do the trick. But if you use distressed inks this way, or inks like on your pages, and you have any tips for me, please leave a comment down below. Like I said, I think a light hand would work. I also had this idea that if I started off of the page, like on a scrap page, and then dragged the brush across the page, maybe the heavy, darker part of the ink would come off on the scrap page. But I don't know if I'm overthinking the whole thing. So anyway, I took an X-Acto knife, cut some of these mushrooms. The little definition down at the bottom is mushroom, so that worked out. So there's a mushroom dedicated page, darkening up all those frames, and that's where my top reads are going to go for the month of April. And now we're on to my stats page, and this page is a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I had so much fun with this. I drew a little map for myself, so I kind of planned it all out and in advance, and I really loved all of these little bottles so much, and I can't even tell you how much I struggled to figure out which 4 bottles got to be my tabs. So I had this idea that I would take, and I found these empty, I think they were potion bottles, some free printable on Google. And so I found these little potion bottles, and I had this idea that I could write my stats inside these potion bottles, which I'm calling nature bottles because it's a nature spread, not a magic spread. So I didn't want them to be stark white since I was toning down all the pages. I colored in a little bit of cork there, but now I have an empty space where I could write some of my stats for the month, and it kind of blends in with this collection of bottles and doodads and stuff. So you're going to see me here. I'm sorry it's off the bottom of the screen a little bit there. I don't think I realized that. But you're going to see me playing around with all these little bits of ephemera. And I cut them all out one night while I was watching a show with my husband. It gave me something to do in front of the TV. And I had a lot of fun doing that. So obviously there wasn't enough room at the bottom for all the bottles to be there. So I had this idea of, what if these bottles were hanging from something? We're just going to imagine there's a beam running across the top of the room. And
What if they were all hanging from that? So I took the idea to my youngest daughter and my stepdaughter, and I said, is this weird? And they both were like, no, that's so cool. That's so cute. So maybe it is weird, but I love knowing that they were a little bit of part of that decision making. I have 7 different stats that I keep track of every month. My pages read, the books read, the books I did not finish, how many new books I acquired in the month, and then also whether the books that I read that month were digital, audio, or print. And I realized pretty quickly that I was not going to have room for 7 empty bottles without it looking overdone with the bottles. So if you remember in the beginning of this video, I showed you this ephemera kit, and you can kind of see the little owl there. What I decided to do was just kind of imagine that maybe this is all hanging in front of like a cork board or something in this biologist's office. And so I cut out whatever was in the middle of those circular wax seal frames. And now it's given me a place to write a few more of my stats. So it did take a little bit of careful cutting with an X-Acto. But now you'll see here I have a place to add those stats in. And I just love how chaotic and cluttered this looks. I feel like somebody who's a biologist, and just so you know, if you can't read it, that middle definition there is biology. But I feel like this is the kind of person they would be. So it just makes me smile to look at it. All right. Sorry for the quick flashes on that part there. I don't think I meant to do that, but at this point I am losing my voice and I would rather not go back and edit and re-voice over. So that is the end of the flashes, though, I'm pretty sure. So this is my last spread in the reading journal for April. And this is where I will glue down all the covers of the books that I read in the month of April. So I usually have some sort of paper running down the right side. That way, when all the tabs are laying to the right, there's still something themey behind it. And then I cut out a bunch of these like fir, pine tree type things and just kind of used that as a little bit of foresty decoration. There's a really pretty butterfly at the top also, and you'll see in a minute I do go back and add a little bit more ephemera to a couple of other spreads that somehow didn't space out very well. So there will be a nod to another butterfly on the beginning page. And I also decided to bring one more animal in here, so just a smaller version of the deer that was also on the beginning of this April spread, these April spreads. So there's that little deer hanging out there. I thought about putting a falcon up in the top right, but just in the end decided not to. So a little bit more of that washi tape, and that spread is pretty much finished. All right, so here's where that other butterfly is going on the beginning of April, and you can see those tabs there with the wood behind it now. And the other spot was right here behind this fox. I don't know what happened. I think I might have lost a fern, but I just decided to glue a couple mushrooms there so they would connect to the page beside it, and trim off a little of this paper here. And that is pretty much it. Overall, I just love it. It definitely has a different vibe than my circus ocean theme, speaking of fictional themes, right? And you can see that's where May is going to start next month.
Okay, so here is my completed spreads. All right, so here are my completed spreads for April with my forest theme. We have my chapter 4 cover page, the bottle tabs down the side. Then these are going to be the 5 books that I am determined to get through in April. The book for my reading challenge and the prompt at the bottom. Then we've got new books that I might acquire in the month of April, the 3 top reads, and space to write how many stars I gave them, which so far it's been all 5-star books every month in this category. This is my stats page. So all the pages read, digital, audio, or print books, books I did not finish, books read, and new books. And finally, this is where I will glue all the covers of the books that I read in April. I might have said March here. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.